You finally did it. You left. You set the boundary. You went no contact. You thought it was over. But then the emails start, the legal threats, the smear campaigns, the uninvited visits, the messages through mutual friends. They are pursuing you, and you feel completely trapped between the unknown ahead of you and the tyrant behind you. In this video, we're going to look at the Red Sea moment. We're going to look at why the pharaoh spirit pursues you after you've already left, what to expect when a narcissist hoovers you post-separation, and the powerful promise that God gives you when you feel trapped with nowhere to run. Now, for those of you who are new, hi, I'm Shaneen. Welcome to Toxicity is Not Your Destiny, where I put out weekly videos on how to navigate toxic relationships in your life from a biblical, practical, and spiritual perspective. So if you're navigating toxic relationships and you need biblical wisdom with practical tools, you're in the right place. So hit that subscribe button if you'd like to receive weekly content from me. And if you are currently trying to navigate this, I do have a free resource for you called the Hoover Playbook, What to Expect After You Leave and How to Stand Firm. This will help you anticipate the tactics and hold your ground. So you can download that for free by clicking on the link in the description box below. So let's dive into it. This is part 3, the final video on the Pharaoh series. In part 1, we looked at why a narcissist refuses to let you go and the theology of the hardened heart. In part 2, we looked at the 4 specific tactics that they use when you try to set boundaries. So if you haven't watched those yet, I will link them in the description box below. These videos give you the full foundation for what we're about to discuss in this video. Now, in the Exodus story, after 10 plagues, God finally delivers the Israelites out of Egypt. They're free. They're walking away after 400 years of slavery. It is over, except it is not. Here's what happens next in the story. The Israelites have left. They are gone. And then Pharaoh has a realization. Now it was told the king of Egypt that the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people. And they said, "Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us?" I want you to pay very close attention to the language here. Why have we let Israel go from serving us? Pharaoh did not say, "I miss them." He does not say, "I love them." He does not say, "I realize I was wrong and I want to make things right." He says, "Why did we let them go from serving us?" He misses the service. He misses the supply. He misses what they did for him. So he made ready his chariot and he took his people with him. Also, he took 600 choice chariots and all the chariots of Egypt with captains over every one of them. He does not send a messenger with an apology. He sends an army. 600 choice chariots. This is not a reconciliation attempt. This is a military operation to recapture escaped property. The narcissist's pursuit after you leave is never about love. It is never about missing you as a person. Whether it is a spouse, a parent, a pastor, or a boss, the pursuit is always about one thing: regaining control of their supply. They cannot tolerate the loss of what you provided for them, and they cannot tolerate the offense of you choosing freedom. Your freedom is a direct challenge to their authority. In their mind, you do not get to leave. You belong to them. In a marriage, the pursuit looks like love bombing texts, threats of legal action, or suddenly showing up at your church or workplace. With a narcissistic parent, it looks like showing up unannounced, weaponizing other family members to pressure you back, or a sudden health crisis that demands your return. In a church, a narcissistic leader may launch a smear campaign against your character, or send elders to check on you with the real goal of pulling you back under their authority. The form changes, but the spirit is the same. Why have we let them go from serving us? They're not coming after you because they love you. They're coming after you because they owned you and they want their property back. Now, here's what happens to the Israelites when they see Pharaoh's army approaching. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. So they were very afraid. And the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. Then they said to Moses, "Because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you so dealt with us to bring us up out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we told you in Egypt, saying, 'Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians'? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness." This is one of the most psychologically accurate passages in the entire Bible. I mean, these people had just been delivered from 400 years of slavery. They have watched God send 10 plagues on their behalf. They have walked out of Egypt with gold and silver. And the moment Pharaoh's army appears on the horizon, their immediate response is, "It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians." This is the trauma response. When the pursuit terrifies you, your brain will actually tell you it was better in bondage. At least in Egypt, you knew what to expect. At least in Egypt, there was a roof over your head. At least in Egypt, the children had 2 parents. At least in Egypt, you had a community. At least in Egypt, you had financial stability. Your brain is not trying to deceive you. It is trying to protect you. The amygdala registers the pursuit as life-threatening, and it reaches for the most familiar form of safety it knows, even if that safety was actually slavery. If you have ever thought, "Maybe I should just go back," I want you to hear me clearly. You are not weak. You are not faithless. You are experiencing exactly what Israel experienced at the Red Sea. The pursuit is designed to make you believe that freedom is more dangerous than slavery. And that is a lie. The wilderness ahead of you, as certain as it feels, is not Egypt. And God did not bring you out of bondage to let you die in the desert. So the Israelites are terrified. Pharaoh's army is behind them. The Red Sea is in front of them. There's nowhere to go. And this is the moment God speaks through Moses. And Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace." There are 3 commands in this passage, and I want to unpack each one. The first, do not be afraid. This is not a dismissal of fear. God is not saying your fear is silly. He's saying your fear is real, but it does not get to dictate your next move. Fear is a valid emotion, but it's not a valid compass. The second, stand still. This does not mean we do nothing. It means we stop running. We stop scrambling. We stop trying to out-strategize Pharaoh. Stop trying to defend yourself against the smear campaign. Stop trying to convince the flying monkeys. Stop trying to match the narcissist energy. You don't have to fight Pharaoh. That is not your assignment. The third, hold your peace. In Hebrew, the word here is charash, and it literally means be quiet, be still, hold your tongue. Stop striving. Stop explaining yourself to people who have already chosen not to believe you. Stop sending the long text messages trying to set the record straight. Hold your peace. Let God fight for you. And then comes the promise. The Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. There is an end to this. I know it does not feel like it right now. I know the emails keep coming. I know the legal threats feel endless. I know the smear campaign feels like it will never stop, but God has made a promise. The Egyptians you see today, you shall see again no more forever. There is a day coming when this pursuit ends, when the harassment stops, when the flying monkeys move on, when the narcissist finds a new supply and finally leaves you alone. Or when God intervenes in a way you cannot yet see. And here's how God delivers them. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and God caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. So the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on the dry ground, and the waters were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. God makes a way where there is no way. The very obstacle that looked like a dead end becomes the path of deliverance. And then, when Pharaoh's army follows them into the sea, and the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the waters may come back upon the Egyptians, on their chariots and on their horsemen." So the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. Then the waters returned and covered the chariots, the horsemen, and all the army of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. Not so much as one of them remained. God uses Pharaoh's own pursuit as the instrument of his defeat. The very waters that delivered Israel destroyed the Egyptian army. Pharaoh's aggression became his own undoing. And this is the paradigm collision I want you to see. God did not ask Israel to love their enemies at the Red Sea. He did not ask them to turn the other cheek to Pharaoh's army. He did not ask them to extend grace to the chariots bearing down on them. He said, "Stand still." There are moments in your journey where the most godly thing you can do is not extend more grace. It is to let God be God and let him deal with Pharaoh directly. You do not have to be the one who brings justice. You do not have to be the one who exposes them. You do not have to be the one who makes everyone see the truth. God has said, "The Lord will fight for you." Your job is to stand still, hold your peace, and move forward when he tells you to move. If you are standing at the Red Sea right now, with Pharaoh behind you, the unknown ahead of you, I want to speak to the fear and the exhaustion that you are carrying. God did not bring you this far to abandon you at the water's edge. He did not open your eyes to see the abuse, give you the courage to leave, and then leave you defenseless against the pursuit. He is the same God who parted the sea. He is the same God who drowned the army. And he's the same God who led Israel through the wilderness with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. He knows the narcissist is pursuing you. He knows the tactics they are using. He knew before they used them. And just as he gave Moses the strategy for every confrontation with Pharaoh, he will give you wisdom for every move you need to make. So seek God. He is not silent. He's not distant. He is fighting for you right now, even if you can't see it yet. So make sure to download the Hoover Playbook, What to Expect After You Leave and How to Stand Firm. You can get that by clicking on the link below, and this will help you anticipate the pursuit tactics and hold your ground when the fear hits. And I'd love to hear from you. If you're standing at the Red Sea right now, or if you have already crossed it and you're on the other side, I want you to type, "God will fight for me," in the comment section below. Let this be a declaration of faith over your situation. And if you have not watched parts 1 and 2 of this series, I would encourage you to go back and watch them, since they will give you a full picture of why the narcissist operates the way that they do and the specific tactics they use, so you can recognize them clearly. Remember, you're not alone, and the Lord is your shield. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.